Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so very much for dropping by this video. To anyone who's new to this channel is dedicated to helping people understand the difference between authentic Advaita Vedanta, also known as non-duality, and nonsense, fake, watered down, modernized, fast food non-duality, often called Neo-Advaita. Although I've also recently heard that it's also called radical non-duality or radical non-dualism. If only that was true. If only it was radical. Radical means to get at the root. And what I'm going to talk about today is how Neo-Advaita or neo-non-duality doesn't get at the root, doesn't resolve the root cause of sufferings and problems. So in my deconstruction of my own Neo-Advaita experience and talking to others, what I've come to realize is that Neo-Advaita doesn't eliminate ego. And first of all, ego is a very problematic word. Traditional Advaita Vedanta doesn't even use it, but I'm going to use it because it's popular and because I've gotten in the habit of it. But just that little caveat, it's a dangerous, it's not a clear word. So I'm going to proceed with caution. So Neo-Advaita does not eliminate ego. It doesn't eliminate the cause of suffering. Maybe that's a better way to say it. What it does is it creates a false personality on top of ego. Many people have called this spiritual ego. Neo-Advaita creates a false sense of enlightenment. What it really does is it creates a personality that actually thinks it's enlightened when it actually, and it's fascinating to watch. It was fascinating to, once I became aware of it, to watch it within myself. And then you can see it in other people. Hey, Leslie, I'll get to your comment in a moment. Thanks for saying hi. So this is why Neo-Advaita teachers, they don't have an authenticity or aliveness to them, and why most Neo-Advaita talks boil down to about 7 or 8 topics that are just repeated over and over and over. Now, that's not to say that Neo-Advaita teachers don't have charisma, but there's kind of this deadness to their words. There may be some bliss going on, but there's kind of this empty feeling that's hard to put into words, but once you see it, you can feel it. So this was all my first clue to this idea of Neo-Advaita creating a personality. Was I knew someone who was heavily involved in Neo-Advaita. When I knew him, he was a solid 25 to 30 years in. And he and I would have amazing conversations. He was actually very open-minded and very, a lot of people who are into Neo-Advaita are very rigid and dogmatic. But he was surprisingly open-minded to bhakti, to devotion, to other paths. And he and I would have these great conversations. And at almost every conversation, we'd be talking about something that was going on in our life, struggles, trying to apply spiritual ideas to it. And we'd have really real conversations, again, which was very surprising. It's very hard to have a genuine, authentic, human conversation with someone who's caught in the Neo-Advaita web, the Neo-Advaita mind maze. And then we'd be talking, having this great conversation. And he would say, sometimes I'm really hard on myself. And then he would say, but who am I? It would be like he'd say, this thing happened at work and I was very hard on myself, but who am I? And the but who am I? It's like it would jump out of him as if he was possessed by it. It's like he could only talk about human things so far or for so long. And then it was like this thing like took over. like the cadence of his voice would jump, and it would just like fly out of his mouth. Um, and so that was the first time where I was like, whoa, it's almost like there's two people here. So that was one of my first clues. Um, Another clue came very strongly for me when I met someone who had begun their process of recovery from Neo-Advaita. And this person described the inner hell that they lived in. And so this was kind of a dialogue, and I've shared this before, and I will never get tired of sharing this because it really highlights what Neo-Advaita can do to you. So this person was like, oh my God, I'm using this to kind of mimic their inner dialogue. They're like, oh my God, I am suffering so much. I need help. And then this other voice would be with them say, there is no you. It's not possible for you to suffer. And then it was kind of this conversation going on in their head. And they would say, but I know that. I know that's true, but I'm suffering so much. There is no you. If you just realize there is no you, then everything will be fine. But I've tried that and it doesn't work. The entire foundation of your suffering is a delusional, untrue idea. If you just let that go, and you will see that you have never suffered, and on and on and on. It's like going to all these Neo-Advaita satsangs, the things that she heard, she internalized them. And the voice of the teacher she studied with became a voice in her head. And it became, it became this new personality. Now, that was in a moment of clarity. When she wasn't in a moment of clarity, then the Neo-Advaita voice was just the predominant voice. The Neo-Advaita voice will squash your authentic human expression. So when I heard that, it just blew me away. It blew me away. And luckily, she was able to begin to break she was able to break free of that and realize that what she had been taught wasn't actually non-duality. It was this Neo-Advaita nonsense, this watered down version of it. And so it helped me to recognize my own struggles. And so she had been involved with what I call Neo-Advaita. That's there's nothing to do since you're already enlightened. The kind of Neo-Advaita I was involved in was the just practice self-inquiry. Don't do anything else. All you need to do is practice self-inquiry. So the dialogue that went on in my mind was something like this, like, oh crap, I can't, I'm not feeling the peace anymore. It was so clear. Everything was so clear. If you just inquire, you will see that the peace never leaves. It's always there. But I've done that, and right now I'm suffering so deeply. All you need to do is notice the one who is aware of the suffering, and the suffering will vanish. But I've tried that. It's not working. I'm suffering so bad. Just inquire. Like that was the loop that went on in my mind. And the problem with that voice is that self-inquiry is only for people who have a very purified mind. If you have any significant imbalance, then self-inquiry isn't for you. And that's not my idea. That's what Ramana Maharshi himself taught. That's what Adi Shankara taught. That's what's in the Bhagavad Gita. But Neo-Advaita teachers just throw that out and they teach everyone to practice self-inquiry, which actually creates this addictive cycle of highs and lows. But that's another topic for another time. So, so that's kind of the personality. The personality that got installed in me was the just inquire. Nothing matters except this expansive, peaceful, free state of consciousness. Nothing else matters. Just inquire. Like it was really like a personality, and it really took control of me and my life. Almost led me to unalive myself. I can't say the S word, but I hope you can figure out what I mean by unalive myself. Here on YouTube, there are some restrictions on what you can and can't say. So, so that's when the two voices were kind of going back and forth. But once the Neo-Advaita software, more like virus, gets installed, then the Neo-Advaita voice becomes your personality. And I experienced this very clearly just a few days ago. Not with Neo-Advaita, but just bear with me for a moment, and I think you'll understand. So, for a variety of reasons, I've kept my distance from people who are interested in spiritual and metaphysical things. Part of it's been my recovery journey of healing from Neo-Advaita, and that's involved like getting grounded, getting human, like taking care of the stuff that's like right in front of me. Partially, it's a long story, but I'll just leave it at that. Part of my healing process has been to not really hang out with people who love to just talk and talk and talk about spiritual and metaphysical things, because that was part of the old habit or pattern of mine where all I wanted to do was talk and think about spiritual and metaphysical things. And Neo-Advaita was one of my favorites because it just creates a dissociative state. It takes you out of the present moment. And so I've just been not hanging around people like that. But I'm going to this new spiritual church, and I met someone there who seemed really cool. And he shared that he had this variety of spiritual interests. And I wasn't being mindful. And I'm like, oh, cool. This person's interested in spiritual things. I'll talk to him. So afterwards, after the service, they had a meal, and I just started like talking about, because some of the things he was interested in were things I had been interested in, and we just started talking about all these different metaphysical topics, not Neo-Advaita or non-duality. And after doing that for about a minute, I started to feel strange. And I could feel myself dissociating. I don't know quite how to describe it. It's almost like the world, like I felt myself getting removed from the world, meaning there was this distance that was starting to happen between me and the world. And then I started to just talk automatically, which I don't do. I'm very mindful. I don't do chit chat. And when I talk to someone, I really reflect and think, and I don't kind of talk on automatic. Like I really put presence into my words, or I try to. I'm not perfect at it. And I just kind of went on automatic. And this went on for about 15 or 20 minutes. And I finally was like, oh my gosh, I feel really shitty. And I excused myself and got up. And then I went back and, let him know that I needed to go. And it was only in reflecting that I really realized, oh my God, that's like the old spiritual or metaphysical personality that I built up for like 20 years. And I really haven't engaged it in a long time. And it really took over. Again, the words that were coming out of my mouth, it was just like happening automatically. I wasn't thinking about it. I was really kind of dissociated. And that really kind of nailed it for me, what Neo-Advaita does, and that it really creates this kind of personality that really does take over and leads to living in a dissociated state, a state disconnected from your body, from your feelings, from I'll just say your authentic expression. And it's this kind of dissociated state where you're just kind of running on automatic. And I don't think I haven't seen it this clearly since I began my recovery, because, before I started talking to this person, I was just in the moment, feeling happy after the spiritual service, just in this peaceful, expansive, I was really connected to myself. I was really solid and grounded. And then within about a minute, it only took a minute of like gabbing away about metaphysical things, to where it's like I kind of left and something else came in. But that thing that came in is just something from my past, which apparently I haven't fully resolved, or um, it's lurking there, waiting to take over if I give it opportunity. So that's what I wanted to share about today. Leslie, thank you for your patience. I don't know if you're still around. You wanted to ask if you know the guru Maharishika. I am familiar with Maharishika. I've watched a few snippets of her videos. I am from. I haven't dived deep, but I so far have been very impressed and appreciative. She talks about Neo-Advaita and the problems with it. Uh, so I'm grateful to her for that. And on my webpage, I have a list of teachers who I've really checked out. And let's see, I already posted it in the. When I have some time, I want to check her out a little more. My to-do list is kind of long, but to see if I feel comfortable recommending her to other people. But the snippets I've seen, I've been very appreciative. Yes, yes, she speaks of the dangers. That's how I found out about her. Was I guess YouTube has figured out I'm interested in Neo-Advaita, and so it offers me all kinds of suggestions. And she's one that I've seen. So yeah, if you would like to share any thoughts or reflections, please do. And wow, we've got, including myself, there's 5 live viewers. There's 5 live people here right now, if the YouTube count is accurate. Welcome. I just finished up. I shared a little bit about my understanding of how Neo-Advaita creates a false personality, and how that personality can really take over. And if anyone has any questions or comments, feel free to share them. And what I will say about her name is Maharishika. I'm probably mispronouncing it. So I got to the point where I refuse. I will not listen to anyone talk about non-duality, or talk about any spiritual path connected to the idea of liberation, of ending suffering. I will not listen to them unless they are a traditional teacher, or they have a traditional teaching. A traditional teacher. Like, if you're not a traditional teacher with a lineage, or you don't have a traditional teacher with a lineage, I won't listen to you. I literally, and that's starting to, I've done that for the last maybe 2 years, because A, it's nonsense. B, it will have no foundation. And C, uh, because it just takes me off track. I had to set that boundary with myself. And it's actually really served me, because what I realized is any liberation, any fat path that's focused on actual liberation, it's a very delicate thing. It's like surgery. You wouldn't go to some doctor who just like read a few books and is like, "Oh, I'm qualified to do surgery now," and be like, "Okay, doc, like cut me open." Because any path that is connected to liberation, um, it's a very delicate process. It's a literal reorientation of your body, your emotions, your mind, your values, your relationship to the world, all your relationships, your relationship to your mind, your body, your emotions, your feelings, your relationship to desire, probably the most primal aspect of what it is to be a human, your view of the meaning of life. And so I realized I refuse to, like, if I want to work on those things, I'm going to go to an expert. So okay, no questions or comments. I think I will wrap up. Let me see if there's anything else I want to share. And so I say all this because Maharishika is, I haven't checked out her lineage, but she teaches in a very traditional manner. And that's one thing, one reason why I want to check her out a little more. And I have deep appreciation for that. So that's where that tangent came from. Wow, there's 8 of us right now. Hello, welcome everybody. Last call for okay, good. Leslie, you're still here. Yeah, if you want to share any of your thoughts and feelings about her, please do. Otherwise, last call for questions or comments. All right. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time, energy, and attention. To those who are still struggling or suffering with Neo-Advaita, my heart goes out to you. Pardon my French, it's just an absolute mind fuck, but it's more than that. It's like this existential mind maze. There is hope. I made it out. I've met other people who have made it out, and I went very far down the hole. So I think that's all I have to share for today. Thank you so much for joining in. I currently do this work by voluntary donation. If you feel inspired to support me or this work, I very much appreciate it. I don't expect it. Real toast. I'll finish that thought. You can find out info about donations on my website. Real toast. Hi. I do have a minute. Yes. So glad you caught me while I was live. And I'm honored to hear that you've been watching my videos. I'm assuming and hoping they've been helpful. Fire away with questions. Well, about fire away, but I'll take one or two. Actually, while you are working on your question, I'm going to do. All right. Interesting question, Real Toast. So, by the way, I love your name. I don't know what it means, but it's a cool name. You write, I've been looking at the non-duality nonsense. I honestly started with it by Muji. Many people have. He's quite the dealer. The non-duality drug dealer, the neo-non-duality drug dealer. What are your thoughts about non-duality being a non-truth? So maybe if you could elaborate a little bit. I think what you mean by non-truth. So let's put aside Muji and other Neo-Advaita teachers, and let's like traditional, actual non-duality. So I think what you're asking is, what are my thoughts about actual non-duality as something that's true? Maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on what you mean by that. Dude, that we should write a I mean, talk about the title for like an anti Neo Advaita, you could say sermon or talk. I exist. I mean, come on. So, okay, real toast. So here's the thing. so so okay, now we're talking about the process of recovering from Neo-Advaita. My view is, so I'm trying to kind of come up with a map of like, well, how do I recover from this nonsense? And it's so much more than nonsense, but how to recover from it. The first step is to recognize something is not right here. Something doesn't feel right, or wow, this is actually making me sick. This is like at a certain point, I got to the point where every time I would start practicing self inquiry, I would feel suicidal. And I was like, this is fucked up. And I would stop, and then I'd go do other spiritual things. And a couple months later, I would come back and go through the whole cycle again. And so, so the first part is like recognizing that something is wrong. And then I would say recognizing that something is really wrong. The third, and again, this is just a model I'm kind of creating or working on. It's a work in progress. The third step is to recognize, for me, the third step in this process was to recognize there is a night and day difference between Neo-Advaita and actual Advaita. They are night and day. This was very important for me because Neo-Advaita is like, this is the ultimate truth. This is the ultimate truth. This over and over and over and over and over. And so to break out of that, I needed to recognize, oh my God, what these Neo-Advaita teachers are teaching is actually different from what Ramana Maharshi actually taught, from what Adi Shankara actually taught, what actual non-dual teachers for like thousands of years have taught. These are two different teachings. That is that popped the balloon for me. So that was essential for me. I don't know if it's essential for other people, but it was for me. So real toast, you said so what I want to say is, what are your thoughts about non-duality being a non-truth? Well, we need to break this down. The question is not, what do I think about non-duality being a non-truth? The question is, what do I think about Neo-Advaita, neo-non-duality being a non-truth? And like, yes, 1,000%. A separate question is, what do I think about actual non-duality? Because actual non-duality doesn't go around saying you don't exist. That's a Neo-Advaita nonsense game. Because I've had the honor and the pleasure to study with multiple traditional Advaita teachers, traditional non-duality teachers. And that's just not how they roll. That's not how they teach. And they wouldn't express it like that. They might express, it gets deep really quick. But so what I want to say is, you've probably actually not heard any non-duality. You've heard neo-non-duality. How about that? That when I realized that blew my mind. I spent over 20 years in non-duality, and then I realized, holy blankety blank. I haven't been involved in non-duality. I've been involved in neo-non-duality. So the only other thing I'll say is, so I consider authentic, I don't even use the word non-duality anymore because it's been stolen by Neo-Advaita, neo-non-duality. So I've now looked at and studied with traditional Advaita teachers. And I've realized that Advaita is not the path for me right now. I have profound respect for it, and I believe it's a valid spiritual path. So that's what I would say is, I mean, there's a lot here, as you can see. I'm just reading the rest of your comments. I was in online Muji Satsang when I said to a committed follower that I didn't agree with following a man. She said, "That's okay. I'll remove you from the group email." No empathy. So it's not just no empathy. It's Neo-Advaita is a formula. That's all it is. It's a formula. Like, you are a clog in a machine, and you're expected to just participate in the machine and go along with the machine. Traditional Advaita, it's very holistic. The teacher will meet the individual where they are. It's very relational in a certain sense. It's just completely different. So, yeah. All right, dear ones. Well, I'm going to wrap up. Real Toast, I love your name. I love your question's a fantastic one. I'm sorry that you experienced what you did. It was actually probably a blessing. to get kicked out of a Neo-Advaita group is a blessing. I know it can be painful, and they didn't do it with much kindness. Well, that's a whole nother topic. But thank you, everybody, so very much for dropping by. If you'd like more information about me or my work or how to recover from Neo-Advaita, please check out my website. I'm going to post it again. I know a couple people just joined, so I don't want to, let's see, there it is, Great question, Real Toast. Thank you for sharing your experience. That's very interesting what happened with that email group, and I'm not surprised. All right, dear ones, thank you so very much for dropping by, and I wish you a blessed, blessed Neo non-duality free day. Take care. Big love.